want to talk about the perfect timeline. And the idea of the perfect timeline is doing everything right, and I say right in air quotes, to arrive at your goal in the shortest possible time, in the straightest possible line, the best possible way. And I'm going to assume at this stage that people sticking around on this channel are car people, and I want to use a quick analogy to think about optimal timeline using cars. I'm a car guy, I've been around cars my whole life, and I can see a fitting analogy. I used to race my car in an event called Modern Regularity, and that was racing around a racetrack to the clock, not against other cars, and trying to be as consistent as possible. If you've ever raced a car before, you would have timed your lap. That's the whole point of racing. And a GPS lap timer will map out your course around a racetrack. And over the course of a number of laps, it will give you an optimal lap time. And that's the app calculating your perfect time around each corner, your perfect braking, your perfect acceleration, perfectly hitting the apex, calculating all your lap data and spitting out the optimal time. You may never be able to go around the racetrack and hit that optimal time, but if you did everything correct at the right time, this is what you're capable of. And that to me is a great analogy for the perfect timeline or the optimal timeline when referencing your life. I've been investing a lot of time on myself trying to figure out who I want to be. Not so much what I want to do, but who I want to be in this world. The person I want to project and the person that I want to be received by others. And I've been thinking about the recipe that would steer me towards my optimal timeline, or my perfect timeline, where I become the person that I want to be versus just being who I am. And I've been thinking about this in the form of how do I log this in a video, and is there any resourceful information in my ideas or my thoughts? So what have I done to get on track, head towards my optimal timeline? The number one thing that I've done is study other people. And I've done that through podcasts, YouTube, and books. And studying other people in the idea of seeing people that I deem successful, seeing what they do, seeing how they act, and seeing what I can implement of that in my own life. Through doing that, I've picked up a few things that I have taken on board. Number one is thought, and I resonated well with Tony Robbins' idea that thoughts are questions. So if you ask better questions, you have better thoughts. And this is definitely something worth your time researching and filtering through your own being. And I'll pop a link below to where he mentions it in one of his talks, seminars, wherever it was. The basic idea is that you think in questions and questions get answered within your mind. So for me, it was a great sense of unworthiness. So I would ask questions along the lines of, I'm not worth it, I don't have enough, I can't be enough. And my brain would answer with, yes, here's an example of when you aren't enough, or yes, you can't do this because you don't have enough, so on and so on. So I began reframing the questions once I became aware of them. The next thing that made a big impact for me was journaling. Much like the racetrack analogy, without information, we can't make change. So if you're not recording your thoughts, if you're not recording what happened in a day, how can you make an adjustment? In my experience, coming home and my wife saying, "How was your day?" is not recording a day in history. It's not dissecting how I felt, how I thought, and what's important. And I only found that through journaling. And I learnt the tools of journaling through a podcast called Resilience Radio. And if I can, I will link that also. There is a lot of great information and a lot of great ways to journal and record a day in history. But without a day being recorded, I can't critique what was good. I can't critique what was bad. And without that information, I can't ask myself better questions in my thoughts. And lastly, is feelings. Having some awareness if I'm feeling something before I think something, or if I'm thinking something and then feeling something. It seems like such a small nuance, but there is so much value in understanding if I'm feeling bad, I'm thinking bad, or if I'm thinking positively and then feeling positively. And understanding that nuance gives me all the control over my thoughts. And yes, it's easy to slip up and fall into bad habits, but it's about becoming aware and then making a shift. And doing that regularly has really changed my outlook on life. It's changed my perspective of how I see myself. And it's actually changed the life that I live in both the physical space and the non physical space. So, thinking in terms of optimal timeline, thinking about taking control over optimal timeline, and then I think as a bonus note, meditation, not being bombarded by external sources, TV, social media, etc., and just taking time to go within. And I don't believe meditation needs to be clearing the mind, but I think meditation in the form of self awareness and self discovery. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of realization to be had inside. And in my experience, the answers to my questions are often better than what Google can provide. I hope there's something in my life that can help improve your life. I'm going to continue to share these tidbits, and I thank you so much for joining me.